I heard my son talking to my daughter. He said, I found a video on her laptop. It's mom, with some guy getting railed. I was halfway down the hall when those words split my chest open like a crowbar. I stopped cold. The house was quiet except for the clock and the whisper of their voices. You know that feeling when the floor shifts under you? I felt it in my knees, in my teeth. But I didn't barge in. I listened, because after 32 years of marriage, a man deserves the truth, even if it crawls in like poison. My daughter hissed back, Are you nuts? You want them to get divorced? Delete it. Mom's been cheating for 17 years, and no one knows. Everything's fine. If dad dumps her, forget about college. The divorce will ruin him. 17 years. The number hit me like a brick to the temple. 17 Christmases, 17 anniversaries, 17 times I raised a toast to a lie. I steadied myself on the wall and watched the shadows of my kids flicker under their door. My son stammered something about doing the right thing. Bless the boy's heart. He still believed truth had a clean edge. He had no idea truth was a serrated knife. I didn't storm in. I didn't ask to see the video. I didn't want to force them to choose sides. A man's word is his bond, and she broke it without a second thought. But that was only the beginning. I breathed through my nose, counted to 8, and walked back to my bedroom like I'd just remembered I left the window open. My hands shook. My jaw locked. I could taste metal. And then I did what men my age do when life slashes their tires. I sat on the edge of the bed and made a plan. Linda, my wife, was at yoga, the catch-all that covered 1,000 little mysteries. I looked around our room. Every framed photo suddenly revised, every smile now a prop. I opened the bottom drawer of my nightstand and took out an old notepad I kept for chores and auto maintenance. I wrote 3 lines: attorney, accounts, copies. I added a 4th, kids. They weren't pawns. They were the only honest thing left in that house. It was just another normal evening, until she walked in humming like nothing was wrong. You okay? She asked, tossing her keys down, not even looking at me. Headache, I said. I watched her face for a flinch, a flicker. Nothing. She leaned over, kissed my cheek, and moved to the closet. The smell of her perfume, my anniversary gift, was suddenly sour. She changed into sweats and asked about dinner. I said I wasn't hungry. My voice didn't crack. That surprised me. She thought I had no proof, but she was wrong. While she showered, I checked the family laptop in the kitchen. No video on the desktop, no obvious folders. I wasn't looking to watch it. I was looking to see how far the rot had spread. Recent files. Deleted items. External devices synced. I saw names I didn't recognize, dates that didn't fit the story she told. That was enough. I closed the lid and breathed, slow and steady, because I knew exactly what I'd do next. I'll be in the garage, I said after she came out in a robe, scrolling her phone, smiling at some screen that wasn't me. She nodded without looking up. In the garage, I pulled my old duffel from a shelf and started packing. Spare clothes, logbook, passport, the fireproof envelope with our home documents. Copies I'd made years ago for just in case. I didn't rage. I didn't smash. I loaded dignity, not dynamite. Then I took photos of the safe, the jewelry case, the titles, the art appraisal she insisted we needed. Documentation is quiet revenge. It says, I'm not surprised anymore. At 10:50, Linda tapped on the door. You coming to bed? She asked, all honey. In a minute, I said, and kept my back to her. My heartbeat had settled into something hard and useful. She lingered, then left. By midnight, the duffel was zipped, the keys were in my hand, and my side of the closet looked like a crime scene missing one suspect. I stepped into the night, shut the door with a careful hand, and drove away without checking the mirrors. I didn't know where I'd sleep, but I knew this. I wasn't running. I was moving into daylight. She thought the darkness hit her. She hadn't met my sunrise yet. And what happened next would change everything. The motel curtains barely let the morning light through. I hadn't slept. I just stared at the ceiling, running those words over and over in my head. 17 years. My kids had carried the secret on their shoulders, while I, the man who built this house, who paid every bill, who gave every ounce of loyalty, was the last to know. I packed carefully, not chaotically. Every folded shirt, every important document tucked into my duffel felt like a nail in the coffin of the life I thought I had. By the time I zipped it shut, I wasn't just leaving my wife. I was burying a marriage that had been dead for nearly 2 decades. That night, I parked 2 towns over and checked into a cheap extended stay. The walls were thin, the carpet was worn, but it was mine. No perfume lingering in the air, no staged smiles, no lies bouncing off the walls. Just silence. In the days that followed, Linda's calls came. First gentle, then frantic. Where are you? This isn't funny. Think about the kids. I didn't answer. Let her feel what it was like to be ignored. Let her wonder. But my children, my God, my children, were another matter. Braden and Emily tried once or twice to reach me, but I let those calls go too. I couldn't face them. Not yet. They'd been caught between loyalty and survival, hiding her sins to protect me from ruin. That thought burned me worse than the betrayal itself. 2 weeks in, I hired an attorney. A divorce wasn't just likely, it was inevitable. I had copies of everything that mattered: property deeds, bank accounts, investment records. Documentation was my weapon, not screaming matches in the kitchen. My lawyer, a hard-eyed woman named Davis, looked me straight in the eye after I laid out the story. You're in better shape than most, but brace yourself. 17 years of deception means she's practiced. She'll fight dirty. I nodded. I wasn't afraid of dirty. I'd been living in filth without knowing it. The nights dragged on. I ate takeout, stared at the television without seeing it, replayed every anniversary dinner, every family vacation, every smile that suddenly looked rehearsed in hindsight. My father always told me, a man can survive anything but betrayal. I understood him now. 3 months. That's how long I stayed gone. Long enough for Linda to start weaving her story to the neighbors. Long enough for the kids to live in the tension of a half-home. And then, one Tuesday night, the phone buzzed with a voicemail. It was my daughter's voice, shaky but determined. Dad, please come back. There's something you need to know. My son's voice broke in after hers, lower, urgent. It's about Mom. It's worse than you think. I sat frozen on the edge of that motel bed, the message replaying in my head like a ticking clock. Worse than 17 years of cheating? Worse than a video my kids had seen and hidden from me? What in God's name could be left? And that's when I realized, leaving hadn't ended the story. It had only peeled back the first layer. What my kids were about to tell me would shake everything I thought I knew. About Linda, about them, and about the very foundation of the life I'd walked away from. But I wasn't ready for the truth waiting on the other end of that call. I must have replayed that voicemail 20 times, each word carving a deeper hole in my chest. Worse than you think. My son's voice cracked on the word Mom, like saying it tasted bitter. I sat there with the phone in my hand, staring at the blinking red light, wondering if I had the courage to go back. 17 years of betrayal already felt like enough to end a man. What could possibly be worse? The next morning, I drove back to town. I didn't go home. That house wasn't mine anymore. It was a museum of lies. Instead, I parked outside the diner where I used to take my kids on Saturday mornings. Pancakes, bacon, bottomless coffee, the small comforts of honest days. I called Braden first. He picked up on the second ring. Dad. His voice was raw, tired. I got your message, I said. Meet me. Bring your sister. They slid into the booth across from me 20 minutes later. My boy looked older somehow, shoulders weighed down by something no teenager should carry. Emily's eyes were red, as if she'd been crying for weeks. What is it? I asked, bracing myself. Emily spoke first, her voice barely above a whisper. It wasn't just once, Dad. It wasn't even just one guy. We've known for years. Mom's been with more than one man. My stomach clenched. How many? Braden looked at me, his jaw tight. We don't even know. But one of them. Dad, one of them isn't just some fling. He's been around. For years. Who? My voice was steady, but my hands curled into fists under the table. They hesitated, glancing at each other like soldiers deciding who had to charge first. Finally, Braden said it. It's Uncle Ray. The name hit me harder than any punch I'd ever taken. My brother. My blood. My kid's uncle. The man who'd stood beside me as best man at my wedding. Who'd slapped me on the back at every barbecue. Who'd played catch with my son in the yard. Emily's eyes filled with tears. We didn't want to tell you, Dad. We thought it would destroy you. But Mom's not careful anymore. She talks to him late at night. She sneaks out when she says she's running errands. We've heard her. I leaned back, breath gone, vision tunneling. My brother. 17 years of her lies, and woven into it was his betrayal too. What about the video? I asked quietly. Emily swallowed hard. That was him. The diner felt suddenly too bright, too loud. People's forks clinked against plates. Waitresses laughed at the counter. And there I sat, a man realizing his entire family tree had been poisoned from the inside. Braden leaned forward, his voice breaking. Dad, you have to come back. Mom's pretending everything's fine, but it's not. It's sick. We can't live like this anymore. We need you. I stared at my son, at his eyes, so much like mine, and a thought colder than anything I'd ever faced slid into my mind. Were they even mine? I didn't say it out loud. Not yet. But the question burned. If she'd betrayed me with my own brother, what else had she hidden? I reached across the table, taking both their hands. You did the right thing telling me. But this isn't over. Not by a long shot. Emily's tears spilled over. What are you going to do, Dad? I looked between them, my jaw set. I'm going to find out the truth. Every last piece of it. And when I'm done, your mother and my brother will wish they'd never underestimated me. They thought I was broken. They thought I'd walk away quietly. But they had no idea I wasn't finished. Not even close. Because now, it wasn't just about a cheating wife. It was about blood. And blood demands justice. The drive back to the motel was a blur. My daughter's tears, my son's clenched jaw, the name they had spoken, Uncle Ray, played on a loop in my head. My own brother. Of all the betrayals, that cut deepest. A man can expect lies from strangers, even infidelity from a spouse in his darkest fears. But blood? Blood was supposed to be unshakable. I sat on the edge of that hard motel mattress, staring at the cracked wallpaper. The kid's words echoed. That was him. My wife in the video. My brother with her. 17 years of lies suddenly had a face I knew too well. But one question stabbed sharper than all the rest. Were my children mine? I hadn't wanted to ask it aloud at the diner, but the thought gnawed at me, relentless. Every birthday candle I'd blown out with them, every baseball game, every bedtime story, it all twisted into doubt. If she'd lain with my brother, then who else? And when? I pulled out my notepad, the same one where I'd written attorney, accounts, copies, kids. I drew a new line, DNA. The next day, I made calls. Discreet ones. At my age, you learn who to trust with sensitive things. There are companies that ship kits under plain labels, promise absolute confidentiality. I ordered 4. When the packages arrived at the motel a week later, I tucked them into a folder like they were state secrets. And in a way, they were. The truth of my bloodline rested inside those cotton swabs and envelopes. The collection was delicate work. I couldn't storm into the house, not yet. But my kids still reached out, and I used that bridge. Coffee with Braden at the library. A lunch with Emily in the park. I slipped a swab into a napkin, a straw, a juice bottle. They never noticed. Every move I made was deliberate. I wasn't just a husband anymore. I was an investigator, a man clawing through the rubble for whatever foundation was left. At night, I lay awake, replaying memories of Ray. Cookouts, beers on the porch, family fishing trips. He'd stood beside me at my wedding, smiling as if he hadn't already begun to covet the woman in white. My hands would ball into fists so tight the knuckles popped. 2 weeks later, the results came back. I waited until I was alone in that motel room, blinds drawn, door locked. The envelope trembled in my grip as I tore it open. The first page confirmed what I feared. Braden, my son, my firstborn, was not mine. The genetic markers aligned not with me, but with a close male relative. Ray. The paper nearly slipped from my fingers. My brother's betrayal wasn't just a fling. It was flesh and blood, standing in my kitchen every morning, calling me Dad. Emily's result came next. Negative. No biological relation. Her father was someone else, unknown. That cut deep, but at least it wasn't him. The younger two, relief mingled with despair. Both mine. Undeniably mine. Proof that some part of my legacy hadn't been stolen. I sat there for an hour, maybe more, staring at those pages until the words blurred. Betrayal wasn't a strong enough word. This was theft, of trust, of time, of fatherhood. That night, I drove past Ray's house. His truck was in the driveway, porch light glowing warm. I watched the shadow of him move across the living room, a beer in his hand, like any ordinary man ending his day. My jaw clenched. He thought I was gone. He thought the storm had passed. But what he didn't know was that I had proof. And I wasn't going to his door as a brother. I was going as a father robbed, a husband betrayed, and a man with nothing left to lose. What happened next would decide everything. I didn't sleep the night I got those results. How could I? Every word on those papers bled into my brain. Not the father. Braden, my boy who carried my name, my walk, my laugh, wasn't mine. He was Ray's. My brother's. The rage inside me was volcanic, but it wasn't the kind you scream out in parking lots or drown in whiskey. No, this was colder, sharper, the kind of fury that plans. By morning, I knew exactly what I had to do. I didn't head straight for Ray's house. That would have been too easy, too reckless. Men like him, liars, cowards, they thrive on chaos. They twist it into sympathy. If I stormed his door and let my fists speak, it would end with cops, with lawyers, with my kids dragged into the mess. No, I wasn't going to give him that. Instead, I drove to my lawyer's office. Davis looked up when I handed her the envelope. She didn't flinch when she saw the words. She'd seen worse. But her eyes softened as she glanced back at me. Your brother? She asked quietly. I nodded once. 17 years. He fathered my son under my roof. She exhaled through her nose, jotting notes. We'll use this. Paternity fraud cases are ugly, but the leverage is immense. You'll walk away with everything that's yours, and she'll walk away with nothing but shame. Her words were steady, but I heard what she wasn't saying. This was more than divorce. This was war. That night, I finally dialed Ray. His voice was casual, like nothing had changed. Brother, haven't heard from you in months. How are you holding up? I swallowed the acid rising in my throat. We need to talk. Just you and me. Tomorrow night. Miller's Bar, 8 o'clock. There was a pause, then a chuckle. Sure thing. Just like old times, huh? Old times. If only he knew. The next evening, I walked into that dim-lit bar with my folder under my arm. He was already there, a beer sweating in his hand, grinning like we were still boys sneaking cigarettes behind Dad's shed. Look at you, he said, standing to clap my shoulder. Been too long, man. I didn't take the gesture. I just slid into the booth across from him, laid the folder on the table. His grin faltered. What's this? I leaned forward, my voice low and steady. Proof. That Braden's your son, not mine. The blood drained from his face. He opened the folder, glanced at the papers, then back at me. His mouth opened, closed, opened again. Listen, it wasn't. Don't. I cut him off, my voice like steel. Don't you dare try to explain away 17 years of betrayal. While I worked, while I built a life for all of us, you were in my house, in my bed through her. Dan, you looked me in the eye at every barbecue. Called me brother. Played catch with Braden knowing damn well he was yours. Do you have any idea what that does to a man? The bar noise buzzed around us. Glasses clinking, muted laughter. But at our table, time stood still. Ray rubbed his jaw, eyes darting. It just happened, all right? I didn't mean for it to go this far. I laughed then, a bitter, hollow sound. 17 years, Ray. That's not something that just happens. That's a choice you made every day you betrayed me. Every year, you let me raise your son as my own while you played the doting uncle. He dropped his gaze to the table. For once, Ray didn't have a comeback. I leaned closer, my voice dropping. Here's how this is going to go. You stay away from me. You stay away from my children. You will not call. You will not show up. You will not whisper a damn word. Because if you do, I swear to God, I'll burn what's left of your life to the ground. You understand me? His lips parted, but I slammed my fist against the table, rattling his beer. Do you understand? Finally, he nodded, his shoulders sagging. A beaten man. I stood, gathered the folder, and looked him dead in the eye one last time. You're not my brother. You're just the man who destroyed his own blood. Then I walked out, leaving him in the shadows of that booth, pale and shaking. But as I stepped into the cool night air, I knew this wasn't finished. Because my wife, the woman who allowed all of this, was still waiting. And she was next. When I left that bar, the night air was sharp against my face, but it wasn't enough to cool the fire in my chest. I'd faced my brother and stripped him of every excuse. But one battle didn't win the war. The real storm was still waiting at the house where it all began, my wife. The next morning, I called Davis, my lawyer. She answered briskly, coffee in hand, already a step ahead. Did you confront him? She asked. Yes, I said flatly. He knows I have the proof. But now it's her turn. Good, she replied. Just remember, don't let emotion sabotage you. Bring the results. Bring control. And remember, in divorce, truth is a weapon, not a catharsis. Her words rattled around in my skull all day. I wasn't doing this for catharsis. I was doing it for justice, for myself, and for the kids. That evening, I drove back to my house. My house. The lights were on, shadows moving in the windows. For a moment, I sat in the car staring at the front door, remembering all the years I'd walked through it believing I had a faithful wife waiting inside. Now I knew the truth. Behind that door lived a stranger. I knocked once. When she opened it, her face froze. "Dan," she breathed, hand fluttering to her chest. You're back." I stepped past her without asking. The smell of her perfume hung heavy in the air, but instead of comfort, it only made me sick. "Sit down," I said, my voice cold, commanding. She obeyed, perched on the couch like a cornered animal. I placed the folder on the coffee table between us, the same one I'd used on Ray. "What's this?" she whispered. "Proof," I said, flipping it open so she could see the bold black letters. "Paternity test results." Her hands trembled as she scanned the pages. Her lips moved, reading silently, "Not the father." When her eyes reached Braden's name, her face went white. "Dan, I can explain." "Don't." I cut her off, my tone sharper than a blade. "Don't you dare insult me with another lie. 17 years, Linda. 17 years you looked me in the eye while raising my brother's son under my roof." Tears spilled down her cheeks. "It wasn't like that." "It was exactly like that," I snapped. "You didn't just betray me. You let me live a lie, day after day, year after year. You stole fatherhood from me. You let me raise another man's child while you played faithful wife." Her voice cracked. "I did it to protect you. To protect the kids." I slammed my hand down on the folder. "Don't twist this into some noble sacrifice. You did it to protect yourself. You did it because you were selfish. And because you thought I'd never find out." She sobbed harder, clutching her face. "Please, Dan, we can fix this. We can get counseling, we can." I stood, towering over her. "There is no fixing this. The marriage is over. You'll see my lawyer soon enough. And when we're in that courtroom, every lie you've spun for nearly 2 decades is going to collapse around you." She reached for me, desperate. "Dan, please, think of the children." I stepped back. "I am. That's why I'm doing this. Because they deserve at least one parent who doesn't live in shadows." Her sobs filled the room as I turned toward the door. My hand lingered on the knob, and for a split second I thought of all the years we'd shared, the life we'd built, or thought we had. But then Braden's face flashed in my mind. Emily's voice. "Dad, it's worse than you think." I opened the door. "Pack your things, Linda. Your reign of lies ends here." And as I walked into the night, I wasn't just leaving a marriage behind. I was walking into a battlefield where truth was my only weapon. What she didn't know was that I wasn't finished. Not by a long shot. Because I had a plan that would ruin her carefully constructed world and make sure she never heard our children again. The papers were filed within a week. My attorney, Davis, was merciless. Every affidavit, every sworn statement, every photo and DNA test was stacked into a wall of evidence. So high Linda's lawyer looked like he was drowning the first time we sat across from each other in mediation. "This is excessive," her lawyer stammered, shuffling through the documents. "My client has already admitted." "No." Davis cut him off sharply, her eyes like knives. "Your client hasn't admitted anything. She spent 17 years lying. And now the truth is written in black and white. Paternity fraud, adultery, financial deceit. She's not walking away with a penny more than the law requires." Linda sat there trembling, her mascara smudged, her hands clasped so tight her knuckles were white. For the first time, I didn't see my wife. I saw a fraud, a woman who had built her castle out of my trust and my brother's betrayal. Her voice broke. "Dan, please. We don't have to do this in front of strangers. We can settle quietly." I leaned forward, my voice calm but razor sharp. "You had 17 years to be quiet. You chose lies. Now the whole truth comes out. Every detail." The room fell silent. Even her lawyer couldn't find words. Back at the motel that night, I listened to another voicemail from my daughter. "Dad, Mom's unraveling. She's crying all the time, saying you're trying to destroy her. But we know the truth. We know what she did. Please don't give in. Not this time." Her voice cracked at the end, and it cut me deep. My children had already lived with her lies for too long. They didn't need me softening now. They needed me to be the man who finally brought it all into daylight. The next court session was brutal. Davis laid it all out: the affair with my brother, the video evidence, the paternity results. The judge sat stone-faced, flipping through page after page. When it was Linda's turn, she tried tears. "Your Honor, I was trapped. If I told him the truth, it would have destroyed our family. I was protecting the children." Protecting them? I finally spoke, my voice steady but loud enough to echo. "You let them grow up in a house built on lies. You made them carry your secret while you laughed in my face. That's not protection, it's cowardice." The courtroom went dead silent. For the first time, Linda couldn't look at me. Afterward, the kids came to see me at the motel. Braden was stiff, his eyes shadowed. Emily looked worn down but determined. "Dad," Braden said, voice low, "is it true? About Uncle Ray?" I nodded. The truth was already in the open. No use pretending now. "Yes, son. He's your biological father." His jaw clenched, but he didn't break. "Then screw him. He's nothing to me. You raised me. You're my dad." The words nearly brought me to my knees. 17 years stolen, and yet in that moment, my boy handed them back with a single declaration. Emily reached across the table, grabbing my hand. "We're with you, Dad. Whatever happens, we're with you." I squeezed her hand, then Braden's. My throat was tight, but my resolve was iron. "Good," I said, "because this isn't over. Not yet. She's going to face the full weight of what she's done. And when it's finished, she'll finally know what it feels like to lose everything." The last hearing was scheduled for the following month. That was when the final blow would fall. Linda thought she had weathered the storm. She thought she could spin her story, play the victim, walk away with sympathy. But what she didn't know was that I had one more card to play. And when I laid it down, her entire world would come crashing down for good. The final hearing felt less like a court date and more like a funeral. Her funeral. Not of her body, but of her lies, her reputation, the little empire of manipulation she had ruled for nearly 2 decades. I sat at the plaintiff's table, my hands steady, my mind clear. Across from me, Linda looked haggard, eyes swollen from endless tears. Her lawyer whispered frantically, but she barely heard him. She was crumbling, and everyone in that courtroom could see it. The judge entered, papers stacked high, and wasted no time. "This case is unlike most," he began, his tone flat but heavy. "The evidence presented, paternity fraud, adultery spanning 17 years, deception involving the defendant's brother, paints a clear picture of deliberate betrayal." He looked over his glasses at Linda. "A marriage cannot survive on this level of deceit, and it will not." Davis rose smoothly. "Your Honor, my client asks for full custody of the 2 minor children, protection of his business assets, and minimal spousal support, given the circumstances." Linda's lawyer tried one last desperate move. "Your Honor, despite her mistakes, Mrs. Lawson." "Mistakes?" I barked before I could stop myself. My voice carried across the room, sharp enough to make heads turn. "She didn't forget to pay a bill. She didn't miss a recital. She lied for 17 years, Your Honor. She robbed me of fatherhood. She poisoned my family. And she dragged our children into her deception. That's not a mistake. That's a choice." The judge raised his hand to silence me, but I saw something flicker in his eyes. Agreement. When he finally spoke, his voice was final, immovable. "Custody of the minor children is awarded to Mr. Lawson. Spousal support is denied. Division of assets will favor the petitioner. This court recognizes the gravity of the defendant's actions and concludes that her conduct constitutes marital fraud." The gavel came down like a hammer on stone. It was over. Linda broke right there at the table, sobbing, her shoulders shaking uncontrollably. I didn't move to comfort her. Not anymore. Her tears weren't for me, or even for the kids. They were for herself, for the empire of lies she had built and lost in a single blow. As we walked out of the courtroom, Emily slipped her hand into mine. "Dad, it's done, right? She can't hurt us anymore." I squeezed her hand. "It's done. You're safe now." Braden walked on the other side of me, his face set like stone. He didn't look back at his mother once. Weeks passed, and slowly, life began to shift. The motel room was gone. I bought a small house on the edge of town, nothing fancy, but it was ours. Real. Honest. Emily painted her room a soft blue. The younger two filled the backyard with laughter again. Braden, God bless him, came to me one night and said, I don't care what the paper says. You're my father. Always. I pulled him into a hug, fighting the lump in my throat. That's all I'll ever be, son. Linda tried to call at first, tried to beg for forgiveness, tried to promise she'd change. I didn't answer. Then, eventually, the call stopped. I imagine her sitting alone in that big, empty house, realizing that lies may carry you for a time, but the truth always demands its price. 3 months later, I sat on the porch with a cup of coffee while the kids played in the yard. The sun was rising, and for the first time in years, I felt peace. Not joy, not yet, but peace. 17 years of betrayal had nearly broken me. But here I was, still standing, with my children beside me, and the future still mine to shape. Linda thought she'd buried me in shadows. She thought her secrets would never see daylight. But I had dragged them all into the sun. And in that light, she lost everything, while I walked away with the only thing that mattered, the truth and my children's trust. That was my victory. That was justice.